So as we continue our lesson for today, let's tackle about the different types of test scores. But before that, we must know what is test scores. Since we always talk about test score, we must know what is test scores. So test scores is a numerical or qualitative representation of an individual's performance on an assessment or examination. It is used to measure the level of knowledge, skills, or abilities demonstrated by the test taker in relation to a specific subject or a set of criteria. They can be expressed as a percentage, a letter grade, or a scaled score depending on the grading system used. Test scores are often used by teachers or educators to assess students' progress, determine grades, and make decisions about academic placement or advancement. So it is used in grading when teachers convert different types of descriptive information and various measures of learners' performance into grades or marks that will provide feedback to learners, parents, and other stakeholders about learners' achievement. So test scores can take the form of any of the following. First is the raw score, second is the percentage score, and 3, derived score, which is under in derived scores are grades that are based on criterion reference and norm reference grading system. So let's first talk about raw score. So raw score is simply the number of items answered correctly on a test. A raw score provides an indication of the variability in the performance of students and the class. However, a raw score has no meaning unless you know what the test is measuring and how many items it contains. A raw score also does not mean much because it cannot be compared with a standard or with the performance of another learner or of the class as a whole. For example, a raw score of 95 would be impressive, but only if there are only 100 items. However, if the test contains 500 items, then the raw score of 95 is not good at all. So a test that only gives a raw score but not the total number of items that must measure and communicate the learner's performance or achievement. Raw scores may be useful if everyone knows the test and what it covers, how many possible right answers there are, and how learners typically do in the test. So another example is in a quiz with 20 items, a student answered 10 of them correctly. In this case, his raw score would be 10 since the students answered only 10 items correctly over the 20 questions given, so it means that he got only 10 as a raw score. So it is also used as a starting point for further analysis and grading. They can be converted scaled to different scoring systems such as percentage or letter grades. So without raw score, a teacher or an educator cannot compute the grades of a learner if they have no raw score in a certain test or examination. So let's proceed on percentage score. So the percentage score is interpreted as the percent of content, skills, or knowledge that the learner has a solid grasp of. Just like raw score, percentage has limitation because there is no way of comparing the percentage correct obtained in a test with the percentage correct in another test with a different difficulty level. So, in percentage score is most appropriate to use in teacher-made test or criterion reference test. Percentage score is appropriate to use for teacher-made test that is administered commonly to a class or to students taking the same course with the same content or syllabus. So in this way, the students' test performances can be compared among each other in the class or with their peers in another section. In the same manner, percentage score is suitable to use in subjects wherein a standard has been set. For example, if an algebra subject sets a passing score of 60% in a test, then teachers and learners would know if a learner has met the desired level of competencies through his or her percentage score. So, kung about sa percentage score, ato gyapon ta magbase sa row score. Without row score, we cannot get the percentage score of a learner. So, in getting the percentage score, you must divide the row score over the highest possible score times 100, and then you will get the percentage score. For example, let's say a student take a science test with 50 questions. So the maximum possible score on the set is 50 points. So if the student answers 40 questions correctly, the row score should be 40 points. To calculate the percentage score, divide the row score by the maximum possible score and multiply by 100. So, kung atong solvon is 40, which is the row score obtained by the student, and then over 50, the highest maximum possible score is equals to 0.80. So, times 100 is equals to 80%. So, that is how to get the percentage score. So, let's proceed to criterion reference grading system. So, the criterion reference system is under the derived scores. So, first, let's tackle this criterion reference grading system. So, this is a grading system wherein learners' test scores or achievement levels are based on their performance in specified learning goals and outcomes and performance standards. So, criterion reference grades provide a measure of how will the learners have achieved the preset standards regardless of how everyone else does. It is therefore important that desired outcomes and the standards that determine proficiency and success are clear to the learners at the very start. This should be indicated in the course syllabus. Criterion reference grading is premised on the assumptions that the learner's performance is independent of the performance of the other learners in their group or class. So, criterion reference is independent. So, sa criterion reference, ang learner's performance is independent. Wala siya kanang independente siya, wala siya nagdepend sa kung unsay performance sa uban nga kanang nasa sud sa klase or naa sa kanang sud sa ihang class, which is nara sa kung maabot niya ang criteria nga gihatag sa teacher or sa kanang sa educator, sa usa ka educator, it is his or her grade. So, the following are some types of criterion reference scores or grades. So, number 1 is pass or fail grade. So, this type of score is most appropriate if the test or assessment is primarily or entirely to make a pass or fail decision. In this type of score, a standard or cut-off score is preset, and a learner is given a score of pass if he or she surpassed the expected level of performance or the cut-off score. So, pass or fail scoring is most appropriate for comprehensive or licensure exams because there is no limit to the number of examinees who can pass or fail. Each individual examinee's performance is compared to an absolute standard and not to the performance of other. So, pass or fail grade, kanang mao ni siya best example sa kanang entrance examination. So, kung ang basihan sa kanang entrance examination is pass or fail grade, bisan pa og gamay ra kag score pero nakaabot ka sa ilang cut-off sa panang cut-off score for passing grade, so it means you pass that exam. But if you cannot meet that certain cut-off score, so it means that you failed that examination. So pass or fail grading has the following advantages. So number 1, it takes pressure off the learners in getting a high letter or numerical grade, allowing them to relax while still getting the needed education. So first advantage niya kay dili kulbaan ang mga estudyante to take that exam because kanang wala sila nag-apas nga high grade ilahang makuha, at least lang makapasar sila. So second is it gives learners a clear-cut idea of their strengths and weaknesses. So mahibaw-an nila kung asa sila mas kanang asa ilahang strength o asa ang ilahang area of weaknesses. So number 3, it allows learners to focus on true understanding or learning of the course content rather than on specific details that will help them receive a high letter or numerical score. So mas maksabta nila kung unsa ang course content, kung unsa ang sulod ana nga kanang course, than nga mas mag-apa sila kung numerical or high grade letter ang ilahang madawat. Kung pass or fail man good, basta lang kay makakahibaw sila kung unsa na nga content or unsa na sure na sila nga makapasar sila, dili sila mobagsak. So however, this type of grading also eliminates competitiveness because learners no longer find the urgency or the need to work hard to get a higher grade, does not provide accurate representation of performance level and knowledge of the learners, and it is not possible to convert to exact score. Pero sa some advantages ang pass or fail grade because ang estudyante mamahala na lang, dili sila makikompete sa ilang mga kanang co-students because para nila basta lang ba makapasar, kay dili man sila kahibaw sa ilang exact grade because you will be marked as pass or fail ra ana nga certain subject or kuan. So dili pud sila ang pass or fail grade sa dili pud accurate kung unsa jud ang imong grado nga nakabot or unsa imong grado jud ana nga kanang subject ka, and then dili po siya nato ma-convert to exact score because it has no corresponding value. Basta kay pass, kung makaabot ka na nga cut-off score pataas, di makapasar ka. But if you didn't meet that cut-off score, below ra ka danha, so it means you fail. So next, another type of criterion reference grading system is letter grade. So in letter grade, this one of the most commonly used grading systems. Letter grades are usually composed of 5-level grading scale labeled from A to E or F, with our A representing the highest level of achievement or performance and E or F the lowest grade representing a failing grade. So these are often used for all forms of learners' work such as quizzes, essays, projects, and assignments. While letter grade looks simple and easy to understand, the true meaning of the letter is not always clear to learners, parents, and other stakeholders. The teacher's rating and the stakeholders' interpretation of the grade are often different. As such, it is important that descriptors for each grade are included in the reporting sheet to ensure accurate interpretation of the letter grades. An example of the descriptors for the letter grade is presented below. So letter grades and its interpretation. So A, interpret as excellent. B, interpret as good. C, interpret as satisfactory. D is for poor, and E is unacceptable. So the above evaluative descriptors indicate that teachers' criterion reference judgment of learners' achievement or performance level. However, It would be best that these descriptors are paired with specific performance indicators that identify the qualitative differences between grade categories. Another disadvantage of letter grades is that the cutoffs between grade categories are always arbitrary and difficult to justify. For example, if a score of C ranges from 76 to 85, learners who get a grade of 76 in a writing test and those who receive a grade of 85 will both get the same letter grade of C despite the 9-point difference. Then, if the next range of grades is 86 to 96, then the one who gets 86 receives a grade of B, although it is just one score higher than 85, which receives a grade of C. Furthermore, letter grades lack the richness of more detailed grading methods. So let's proceed to plus and minus letter grades. So this grading provides a more detailed descriptions of the level of learners' achievement or task or test performance by dividing each grade category into 3 levels, such that a grade of E can be assigned as A plus, A, and E minus, B as B plus, B, and B minus, and so on and so forth. Plus and minus grades provides a finer discrimination between achievement or performance levels. They also increase the accuracy of grades as a reflection learners' performance, enhance student motivation, and discriminate among performance in a very similar pool of learners, such as those in advantage courses or star sections. However, plus and minus grading system is viewed as unfair, particularly for learners in highest category, creates for stress for learners, and is more difficult for teachers as they need to deal with more grade categories when grading learners. So, I will show you the example of descriptor for plus and minus letter grades. So, plus and minus letter grades and its interpretation. So, A plus interprets as excellent, A is to superior, A minus is very good, B plus is good, B very satisfactory, B minus is high average, C plus is average, C is fair, C minus pass, D conditional, and E or F failed. So now let's proceed to categorical grades. So this system of grading is generally more descriptive than letter grades, especially if coupled with verbal levels. Verbal levels eliminate the need for a key or legend to explain what each grade category means. Examples of categorical grades are exceeding standards, advanced, exemplary, expert, and master. So when you meet the standards, you will be graded as intermediate, accomplished, proficient, and distinguished. Approaching standards, basic, developing, competent, and proficient. Emerging standards, novice, beginning, apprentice, intermediate, and not exceeding standards, below basic, inadequate, novice, and also novice. So, in categorical, grading methods have the same drawbacks as letter grades. Like letter grades, the categorical grades provide cut-offs between levels that are often arbitrary, lack the richness of more detailed reporting methods, and fail to provide feedback or information that can be used to diagnose learners' weaknesses and refer for remediation. So for example, the grade 8 students were assigned a project. It is to draw the food chain. The teacher has established 4 categories to assess the student's performance. So number 1 is exemplary. It means that this category represents exceptional work where the students demonstrate a thorough understanding of the concept of a food chain. The drawing is visually appealing, accurately depicts the flow of energy through the food chain, and includes appropriate levels and annotations. The second category is proficient. This category indicates that the student has met the expected level of proficiency. The drawing shows a good understanding of the concept of a food chain with a clear depiction of the flow of energy and the organisms involved. The labels and annotations are mostly accurate and help convey the ideas effectively. So, the last category is developing. This category signifies that the student is making progress but has not yet reached an expected level of proficiency. The drawing may have some inaccuracies or inconsistencies in depicting the food chain, and the labels and annotations may be partially correct or lacking in detail. So based on their assessment of each student's drawing, the teacher would assign a categorical grade to indicate the level of achievement. So for example, student A is exemplary, student B is proficient, and student C developing. The categorical system provides a clear and concise evaluation of each student's drawing based on the understanding and accuracy of the food chain concept. It allows for easy comparison and understanding of the level of achievement within the specific categories. So this type of grading system can help students and parents identify areas of strengths and areas that require improvement in their understanding and representation. So, lahi ra pud ang categorical grades sa letter grades, no, kay it is using verbal levels. Lahi ra siya sa letter, which is letter jud siya, and then na siya po siya category nga gisunod. It depends on the teacher grading system jud. Depende kung unsa criteria ay hatag sa teacher in assigning a task or examination. So let's proceed to number 4, the norm reference grading system. So it is also a type of kanang test scores, but it depends on the norm reference grading system. So in this method of grading, learners' test scores are compared with those of their peers. Norm reference grading involves rank ordering learners and expressing a learner's score in relation to the achievement of the rest of the group. So take note that in norm reference grading system, learners' test scores are compared with those of their peers. Unlike sa criterion reference grading system, the learner's performance is independent to the other students' performance. So, man ilang kalahian, no? Kung ang norm reference is being compared to those of their peers, ang criterion reference is independent. So, the peer group usually serve as the normative group. For example, is class, age, group, year level. Unlike the criterion reference scoring, norm reference scoring does not tell what the learners actually achieve, but it only indicates the learner's achievement in relation to their peers' performance. So, norm reference grading allows teachers to 1. Compare learners' test performance with that of other learners. 2. Compare learners' performance in one test or subtest with another test or subtest. And number 3, compare learners' performance in one form of the test with another form of the test administered at an earlier date. So, ano ko nang giingon, no? Ang norm reference grading system is to compare your test scores to sa imong mga kauban, mga laing estudyante sad nga nasa usa ka normative group. So for example, age level ba nimo, class ba nimo, or year level. So there are different types of norm reference scores. One of these is the developmental score. It means that these scores that has been transformed from raw scores and reflect the average performance at age and grade levels. So sa developmental score sad, it has two kinds, which is the grade equivalent and age equivalent scores. So first is grade equivalent score. So it described as both a growth score and status score. The grade equivalent of a given raw score on any test indicates the grade level at which the typical learner earns this raw score. It describes test performance of a learner in terms of a grade level and the months since the beginning of the school year. So a decimal point is used between the grade and month in grade equivalence. Also, a grade equivalent score is a type of score used in educational assessments to represent a student's performance in relation to grade levels. It is often used to provide a reference point for understanding a student's achievement compared to their peers in a specific grade level. So a grade equivalent score is typically reported as a combination of a grade level and a month of semester. For example, a grade equivalent score of 5.2 would indicate that the student's performance is equivalent to the average performance of a typical student in the second month of 5th grade. So, to obtain a grade equivalent score, you can follow these steps. First is to select a standardized assessment. Choose a standardized assessment that aligns with the subject or skill you want to measure. Standardized assessments are designed to provide consistent and comparable results across a large group of students. Second step is administer the assessment. Administer the assessment to the students following the guidelines and instructions provided. Ensure that the administration process is fair, consistent, and adheres to the standardized procedures. So, third step is to score the assessment. Score the assessment based on the predetermined criteria or scoring rubric. So, it means that musunod ka sa kay standardized assessment man ang imong gigamit, musunod ka sa ilahang predetermined criteria or scoring. This may involve tallying the number of correct answers, assigning points, or using other scoring methods specific to the assessment. So, the fourth step is obtain the raw score. Calculate the raw score for each student by summing up the points or correct answers they achieved on the assessment. So, kuhaon gihapon nimo ang raw score because it is so very important to compute the ilahang grade equivalent. So, fifth step is obtain the norm group data. So, obtain the norm group data which represents the score of a reference group of students who have taken the same assessment. This data is typically provided by the assessment publisher or organization. So, since it is a standardized assessment, na siya kanang say tawag na lain nga test taker na nga mas naguna pa nila, which is it was computed and then nakuha na po nila ang norm group data. So, 6 steps is compare the raw score to the norm group. So, you must compare the raw score of each student to the norm group data. Determine the average score and standard deviation of each grade level within the norm group. So, 7th step is convert to grade equivalent score. Use the norm group data to convert the raw score into a grade equivalent score. This conversion involves comparing the student's raw score to the average scores of students at different grade levels within the norm group. The grade equivalent score is typically represented as a combination of a grade level and a month of semester. So, the last step is to report the grade equivalent score. Communicate the grade equivalent score to the student, parents, and educators. This score provides an indication of the student's performance in relation to grade level expectations and allows for comparison with peers. So, for example, let's consider this scenario. There are 3 students in the same grade level. Let's say it's grade 4. They take a standardized reading assessment. The grade equivalent scores for each student are as follows. So student A, grade equivalent score 4.5. Student B, grade equivalent score 4.2. Student C, grade equivalent score 4.8. In this example, student A has a grade equivalent score of 4.5, which means their reading performance is equivalent to the average performance of a typical student in the 5th month of grade 4. Student B has a grade equivalent score of 4.2, indicating the reading performance is equivalent to the average performance of a typical student in the 2nd month of grade 4. Student C has a grade equivalent score of 4.8, suggesting the reading performance is equivalent to the average performance of a typical student in 8th month of grade 4. So by comparing these grade equivalent scores, we can see that student A is performing slightly above grade level, student B is performing slightly below grade level, and student C is performing well above grade level within the same grade level. So, pareha naman sila grade level, but when you compute the grade equivalent score, dili sila magpari-pareho. So, kay si student C man ang pinakataas, which is 4.4, it means that he has a advanced knowledge kaysa sa duha, which is ang student A is 4.5 and student B is 4.2. So, ingan na siya ang grade equivalent score. So, another kind of developmental scores is the age equivalent score. So, it indicates the age level that is typical to a learner or to obtain such raw score. It reflects a learner's performance in terms of the chronological age as compared to those in the norm group. Age equivalent scores are written with a hyphen between years and months. For example, a learner's score of 11-15 means that his age equivalent is 11 years and 5 months olds, indicating a test performance that it is similar to that of 11 and 1/2 years old in the norm group. So, in getting the age equivalent score is same as grade equivalent score. So, first, you must select an age norm assessment. So, second is administer the assessment. Third is score the assessment. And 4, obtain the raw score. And 5, obtain the age norm data. And 6, compare the raw score to the age norm data. And 7, convert to age equivalent score. And lastly, report the age equivalent score. So, for example, a child named Emily is assessed using a standardized developmental assessment to measure her expressive language skills. The assessment provides an age equivalent score which indicates the level of performance compared to typically developing children of a specific age. So, Emily, who is 4 years old, takes the assessment and her results indicate an age equivalent of 5-6 for expressive language skills. This means that Emily's expressive language skills are equivalent to those of a typical developing child who is 5 years and 6 months old. So by comparing Emily's performance to the typical developmental milestones for expressive language skills, the age equivalent score provides insight into her level of language development. In this case, Emily's expressive language skills are more advanced than what is typically expected for a 4-year-old, as she is performing at a level similar to a child who is 5 years and 6 months old. So sa age equivalent score, we can compare it sa age norm data, which is mahibawan diri na to mahibawan kung ang level sa knowledge sa usa ka bata is tupong ra ba sa iyang edad or ubos sa iyang edad or mas high pa kaysa sa iyang edad. So unlike sa grade equivalent score is ato na to pud mahibawan no kung ang iyang knowledge and skills is appropriate ba sa iyang grade level or mas advanced siya or mas low. So same ra sila, but its difference is it is grade level o age. So same ra jud gihapon sila, but ilarang difference is ang usa lang is sa grade level, ang usa is sa age, but its similarities is mao jud iyang gikuan kung appropriate ba sa iyang grade level o sa iyang age ang iyang knowledge and skills. So let's proceed to another type of norm reference grading system, which is the percentile rank. So percentile rank indicates the percentage of scores that fall at or below a given score. Percentile ranks range from 1 to 99. So percentile has been discussed back to lesson 8. So they provided a more detailed discussions on percentile. So the percentile rank is katong nag-base siya sa 1 to 99 range. So for example, if you obtained a score of 70 percentile rank in a standardized achievement test, it means that the learners was able to get a higher score than 70% of the learners or pairs in the norm group. So it means that sa iyang na-obtain nga score nga which is 70th percentile rank, mas taas iyang score kaysa sa 70% nga iyang kauban nga ni test sa standardized achievement test. Mao na siya ang percentile rank. So next type of norm reference grading system is the Stanine score. So this system expresses test results in 9 equal steps, which range from 1 to 9. So a Stanine score of 5 is interpreted as average Stanine. So na-discuss na po ning standard 9 sa kanang lesson 8 no, which is more detailed. Sa diri ang ani nga lesson is kanang taphaw na siya. So na siya ang Stanine is na kanang kwan siya na siya verbal interpretation. So nakuan po siya sa percentile rank. So description, Stanine percentile rank as we read. So very high is equals to 9 and 96 and above percentile rank. Above average 8, 90 to 95 percentile rank, 7, 77 to 89 percentile rank. So in average 6, 60 to 76 percentile rank, 5, 40 to 59 percentile rank, 4, 23 to 39 percentile rank, below average 3, 11 to 22 percentile rank, and 2, 4 to 10 percentile rank, and the very low 1 is 3 and below percentile rank. So mas nasabtan naman nato ang Stanine no, standard 9 sa lesson 8, which is they discuss how to get that certain standard 9 score. So let's proceed to the fourth types of norm reference grading system, which is the standard scores. So standard scores are raw scores that are converted into a common scale of measurement that provides meaningful description of the individual scores within the distribution. A standard score describes the difference of the raw score from a sample mean expressed in standard deviations. So two most commonly used standard scores are Z-score and T-score. So na-discuss na sad nila sa lesson 8, mas detailed discussion on standard scores sa lesson 8, which is the Z-score and T-score. So let's have an overview sa Z-score. Z-score is one type of standard score. Z-scores have a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. It is computed using the following formula. Z is equals to X minus X bar over S, or Z is equals to X minus mean over standard deviation. So, mao to'y formula sa Z-score. So, standard scores are useful when you want to compare learner test performance across two class distributions. So, a Z-score can be either be positive or negative. The plus and minus signs do not indicate the magnitude of Z-score. Rather than, they indicate the directions of raw scores from the mean. A positive Z-score means that the raw score is higher than the group mean, while a negative Z-score indicates that the raw score is lower than the group mean. So, mao to ang Z-score, no? So, let's proceed to T-score. T-score is another type of standard score wherein the mean is equal to 50 and the standard deviation is equal to 10. It is a linear transformation of Z-scores which have mean 0 and standard deviation. It is computed from a Z-score with the following formula. T is equals to 50 plus 10 Z. So a test score of 50 is considered average, with T-scores ranging from 40 to 60 as within the normal range. T-scores of 30 and below and T-scores of 70 and above are interpreted as low and high test performance respectively. So, in this figure, the following figure represents the relationships among the various standard scores and percentile rank in a normal distribution. So, in this figure, no, makita nato diri ang normal bell-shaped curve, the percentage of cases in 8 portions of the curve, standard deviation, cumulative percentage, percentiles, Z-scores, T-scores, standard 9, and the percentage in STA9. So, that's all my report, and I hope that you have learned something.